be appropriate, Cheryl. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I guess we're official now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for joining the meeting today, especially when the weather's so beautiful. I'm sure that everybody just wants to be outside. Now we have two special guests with us today. We have Madeline and Tyler, and we're going to hear about the, well, I won't get into it. We'll just, we'll, I guess, start with the presentations because that is our number one item on the agenda. So we have the presentation concerning the development applications. Oh, I'm sorry about my dog. Yes, as I said to Tammy, he hasn't barked all day. The presentation concerning development applications and that's a separate item.
So so it's Madeline's going to talk about that, but just so that everyone's aware, it's going to be a discussion. It's not really a presentation because how do you stick that on a PowerPoint, right? So yeah. So Madeline's just going to talk to us about it, and then we're gonna go from there.
Good. Okay, Madeline.
I'll take it away. Thanks so much for having me here today. So my role at the city is to review development applications in a variety of different ways and looking at a variety of different things. And recently I've taken on reviewing these applications for accessibility considerations as well. So a lot of applications that we've seen this year, specifically just over 50, have been through the form of a pre-consultation. So there's not, I say they're not as detailed as I'd like them to be, but they are sort of more general concepts that are presented to the city that we advise developers and applicants sort of how to proceed and how to sort of what roadblocks they're going to see, what roadblocks they're not going to see, how they can proceed to get through their development. So at that time, while there's not fine details, if there is anything that I see that can relate to accessibility or any sort of unique aspects that can be brought in and discussed through accessibility, this is a great time for me to start those discussions. Mm-hmm. So I haven't seen anything, I haven't seen anything that's really jumping out as to give me too much of opportunity to go in to those fine details, but it's definitely something that I'm reviewing and asking applicants to consider. And when I do see something that gives us a more opportunity to get into these accessible things, or a situation where accessibility is going to play a critical component, I can have more conversations and get into more detail. So we of course see Planning Act applications come in, so that's site plan, rezoning, all of those other different types. And again, that's where there's more detail and we're able to get in and get into the nitty-grittier, and it allows me to have these more detailed conversations with developers and applicants to say, how are you considering accessibility? Have you considered this? And what other considerations are available on this site, and how can we work to make those happen? So that's sort of my little spiel. Do you have any sort of questions about what I look at, or anything sort of about my process? Yeah, Heather.
Absolutely do. But please don't take this the wrong way. Don't take my excitement about this the wrong way. I'm thrilled to hear that you're engaged in this work, Madeline, and thank you for asking those questions of the developers nice and early on so that they can join us in this. So my first question is just sort of which type of applications are you most focused on? Is this like all building applications, just commercial, residential? Where does that all?
So luckily I do get to see them all, which is a lot on my plate, but it does mean that I get a great handle on what's going on in the city. I'm specifically not more interested, but looking at more details when it's things like larger residential developments or like public facing developments. Like those things are more where I would focus in on these accessibility comments, because we do see like small additions to private dwellings all the way up to, you know, multi 100-unit developments. So a wide range of things. I'm able to ask for consideration with everything, but get a bit deeper on those applications that it makes the accessibility should be considered even more.
So I'm going to let Cheryl help me remember where we were at, but we were talking a couple of years ago, Cheryl, about finding ways of encouraging residential developers to include a certain percentage of their units with accessibility in mind and some universal design.
So that goes through to the official plan. So all the elements that Jordan came and presented to you guys about with the official plan and the urban design guidelines, that's kind of all been wrapped up into that. So just for Madeline's background info, this committee really liked the work being done in Caledon, where they are requiring, they've created a policy that requires developers to, when they have like, say, a show home or something like that, it requires them to have a layout, an accessible option when they are presenting that information. And so we had, at the time, sent that information to Michelle, and Michelle said, isn't it just funny? We're working on the official plan right now, so let's make sure that that's kind of incorporated. So this committee spent a lot of time with Jordan talking about different things like that. So we don't have a policy per se like Caledon, but all those elements that you're talking about have been incorporated into the official plan. And you'll have to be patient because the development community, they haven't quite, like our official plan isn't quite live yet, like the updates. But once it is, there'll be like a process where they're going to be getting used to the changes in the official plan, plus the urban design guidelines that Jordan had presented to you. So right now we're kind of in that limbo. We're in the in-between stage, but it's coming. It is coming.
That was what I was thinking. So I didn't want to jump ahead, but I just wanted to say, Madeline, if I can ever be involved, if we can ever be involved in helping to have conversations when you get that far,
that's a really good segue, Heather, because one of the things that Madeline was going to say at the end of her discussion, but a boom ching, was, hey, if anybody on this committee would like to take over or help facilitate these comments, then we contact me, and between myself and Madeline and everybody else that needs to talk to you, we can help you learn how to provide these comments on these plans through our platform. We have a platform, so you wouldn't even have to come in to the city. Back in the old days, we used to have to print large site plans and hand deliver them. Louise probably remembers this, and deliver them to accessibility members who were doing this work. So now we don't have to do that. But if you guys are interested, and I think I saw Marie Francis put her hand up, like we'll take this offline. We won't bug Madeline, but that would be a huge help to me, to Madeline, to the whole city. So if you're interested.
Yeah, I would certainly volunteer to help as well.
We have a whole bunch of people, Madeline.
Great.
I just think that this committee as a whole is a really good sounding board. We have a lot of different perspectives, and we can provide a lot of different kinds of input and help. So yeah,
there's definitely opportunity for that, and I mean, you'll get to see sort of the different sort of levels of applications that we see, kind of, and how they sort of go through the planning process, which is where I come in. But you can see, like you said, having these conversations at the beginning and have them again through site plan, and then we can work together to get through to those finalizations. And yeah, absolutely would love to hear what you have to say about those through those different stages. So was there any other questions for me?
No, I don't think so. Just a comment, and Cheryl, you can probably remember this as well, and Louise and Heather. A couple of years ago, and I only remember doing this once, we looked at a plan for a development, and it was really eye-opening. And I think, and I hope it was helpful, that we were able to look at it and make some really valid comments. And clearly they were things that the developers had never even considered. And so I think that this is really important, that we can provide input earlier rather than later. Louise, do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't think the project went, was it the one, the senior center, the area that was supposed to be down around Bradford Street?
Yeah,
There was a senior center involved.
that one, the one, yeah.
And
So
they put the retirement home at the back of the property.
yeah, there was a couple that you actually commented on, and one of them actually was the comment. It was actually a retirement facility right on Collier, and that is going forward.
Right.
The one where they had the retirement facility at the back, with the grocery store,
the furthest from the grocery store.
Yeah, so it did that project didn't end up going. And this is the thing. So maybe Madeline can speak to this. So Madeline sees at the pre-consult stage dozens of applications that don't end up going anywhere for a variety of reasons. Like, so it's like, don't get upset, like, because all your comments regardless are valid. They're very important comments. So yeah.
And the other thing is with these, like specifically some of these applications that come in, they're getting a gauge for what's the city looking for, because it is the best way to not only understand what the city's looking for from a planning perspective, but there's also other technical issues. So absolutely, the city can be encouraging of certain development, but there's a water table, or there's not enough servicing, or there's just these other constraints that I don't get too involved in those ones. But even to provide them with comments, we see it and we say, okay, here's 5 just as a number of things that we want to see should this project go forward. Then they can take that into consideration and take it away. And if it does get forward, then it moves on. And we've explained to them, this is what we'd like to see. But yeah, we do see dozens of applications that either don't come forward in the next 6 months or year, and usually our comments are good for about a year or so, or they kind of come in right away, and then we've given those comments up front, and they know what to expect. So really depends on the nature of the project.
Okay, cool. Marie Francis?
So what have we got coming up in terms of development, like big residential stuff or whatever? We've got the ones sort of off of Veterans, and then like that's not developed at all yet. What else have we got to?
So there are a variety of projects, and there's a page on the city's website and even a map that outlines all these projects, and I think that would be the best place. Because what's coming up to me is sort of a different timeline than like shovel in the ground and what's like when it's getting developed. So the proposed developments page on the city's website outlines all the active applications, so active site plans and rezonings, and that's when you can see, unit counts, unit types, other blocks, like if it's a commercial block or a residential block, and all of that is outlined, and what stage they're at. So
yeah, so those are things that are already in the works.
Yeah. Oh, like various stages. So already approved by council.
Yeah.
And so I'll send an email to everybody with that link so you guys can check it out. So we are, just so that everyone's aware, we are targeted as a community to grow. So the province has targeted us as a municipality to grow. And with that comes obligations that are related to development. and not just like housing, but industrial commercial development as well. So we have obligations to the province to develop so much living space as well as so much workspace, employment lands by a certain date. And wrapped up into that is intensification, which means that we have a requirement to build up, not just build out, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, it makes them uncomfortable. I find, because people they like what they like about their community, and they want their community to stay the same way. But we have this obligation. It's been set in motion years ago, and we're just fulfilling our obligation to that end, and trying to support really good planning decisions to make sure that with that change, we have a positive community impact. But as Heather was talking, and Catherine and Louise, this committee has a say in some of how those development projects turn out. Like we have legislation that guides developers, but if it wasn't for Madeline reminding them of that legislation, they would try to weasel through without having to do some of the things that we need them to do, right? So this committee can help with that as well. So I'll make sure I send that link, and you guys can check that out on your own.
Thank you.
I'll just add on, additionally, with our new official plan coming into the city, it sounds like you guys are aware of that project that the city is undertaking. There is I believe there's a second draft out, or that's also provided on our website, just to say, here's our next piece. And this is another opportunity where your input would be appreciated, kind of on a broader level, not to these specific projects, but rather to see what we want included in that guiding document for the city's development to meet those obligations that are established by the province and other standards. So it's a little more wholesome, and it's a little more high level. It's not really the nitty gritty, but it really does guide development, and it is policy, so it's required. Yeah. Anything else?
Carolyn?
Yeah, I just have a question for you, Madeline. They have cancelled the development at the Five Corners, and I wondered what happens now. Does with that being cancelled, can you just walk me through that a bit?
So I don't necessarily have the information as to when or why that development was stopped and canceled. From a planning perspective, every development goes through a planning process, and whether that application moves forward, gets registered, withdrawn, like there's kind of planning check marks. Many times we'll see through a process, they'll get through one check mark and then sell it off to somebody else who brings it to the next piece, sell it off to a developer who brings it to the next piece. So why it has stopped or been shelved or canceled entirely, it wouldn't necessarily be something that the city would play a part in. If I have more information, I'd love to provide it to you, but that's just not really where I fall in that specific development.
I think though, just to maybe it would be helpful if it's stopped. So it could be stopped because maybe there's environmental issues, and whoever has it is just not willing to pay the prices that they have to pay to clean up the site to do the development. So it could be something just like that. But so if it is canceled, just like somebody else could take that on. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a vacant lot forever. Is that correct, Madeline?
Correct. Yeah. And we do see, like I said, there's sort of those checkpoints, like there's a rezoning to establish the land use standards, and then there would be a site plan to establish the fine details of that development. It could have made it one way and then taking off to the next, even if it was established for 25 stories in this built form, you could see it maybe in a couple of years come back as 22 stories or something else. It definitely doesn't mean that parcel is vacant and can never be developed. just means there's some sort of roadblock or some sort of decision was made to stop the project at its current time. So
I believe they just didn't sell enough units by a certain date that was written into their contract, and they had issues with their creditors in terms of extending. So
it's an expensive business to be in. Ooh, yeah.
Right now? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that.
Anything else? Well, we look forward to working with you, Madeline.
Absolutely.
I think I can say that for everybody.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Happy to like receive, even if you're like Caledon, like for example, you know, I sort of got that written down, look into that myself. And if there is other projects or other like standards that you see, absolutely reach out to myself and Cheryl and say, hey, this is what we found. And then even more so if you decide, hey, I'd like to take a more involved part in this review, be happy to accommodate that and get you on the right path there. So
well, thank you so much, Madeline. So this committee is just some more on that Caledon thing. So this committee is aware of the building code requirements and how, if it's a single family dwelling, really it's up to the homeowner to make the choices to make things accessible. But what they and we are learning is that a lot of people in our community would make choices for universal accessibility, especially as people are aging. There's that interest of aging in place, but they're not aware of their options. And so even though, you know, you're challenged in reconstruction when you have an existing building, if we're doing so much residential development, wouldn't it be great if so many of them could already have those universal design elements built into them? And so we know that architects and designers have these plans, but it's kind of that hidden knowledge, right? So we want the development community to share that, so that when buyers are out there looking at their options, they can be like, hey, I want that accessible option. I want that universal design option, or whatever they're going to market it as, because we're encountering so many more people who want that. And it's just because they don't have that information readily available. So.
And then we want to make sure that what is advertised as universally accessible or universally designed actually meets some standards, because the things that I have seen labeled versus the things that I could use in my power wheelchair, there may be just a bit of a gap. But
and yeah, maybe it is something that we get involved in and we establish to say, hey, these are the options we want to see provided, as we understand that they're what people are looking for, and obviously there's a whole wide range of what people are looking for. But if we had a bit of maybe an understanding of what we'd like to ask to be offered, that's something that we could advise the developer of and have that conversation with them as soon as we're aware of their plans to get going.
Thank you so much, Madeline.
Thank you. Okay.
You can do that all, yeah.
Oh yeah, there. Okay, so we can move on to item 1.2, and that is the presentation concerning Mclaren Access Art, and that is going to be Tyler. Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. I see some new faces to me and some familiar faces, so I'm really happy to be able to present Mclaren Access Art to you. I know that you all got the presentation in advance, but I would like to share my screen and just take you through it in a little bit fuller way. So give me 1 second here while I share my screen. So can everyone see the blue and white screen there?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. So I'll introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Tyler Urbano. I work at the Mclaren Art Center, which is on the corner of Collier and Mulcaster, sort of kitty corner across from City Hall. I am the accessibility coordinator, but right now I'm sort of transitioning into more of a curatorial role. I got the role as accessibility coordinator through a grant, an Ontario Trillium Foundation grant that we wrote at the beginning of last year to really look at accessibility at the Mclaren Art Center, but specifically within the gallery spaces. So not necessarily physical accessibility to the building as a whole, but really how to increase the physical accessibility inside the gallery spaces, the emotional accessibility, and the intellectual accessibility. So it's a wide-ranging thing that we're trying to pull off here with this, medium-sized to small-sized OTF grant that we've got. I will preface this by saying that the grant covered a specific period of time. Because of COVID, a lot of things have been extended and pushed back. So we're still in the process of doing this grant. Just things like audience participation had to be pushed back because of COVID, health and safety. So I want to start also by recognizing our partner organizations. We couldn't have done any of this work and research without the partner organizations. There are specialists in the area. So we worked with Deafblind Ontario, CNIB, Simcoe Muskoka, Deaf Access, the Bob Rumble Home for the Deaf, Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County, Cope Service Dogs, Brain Injury Services, Empower Simcoe, Camp Hill, and Autism Ontario. So I like to say, if at any point you can't hear me or see me or communicate with me in a way that feels comfortable for you, please let me know in a way that you're able to. Just as we go along, we all know technology is sort of pretty fickle these days. So here's just what I would like to go through for this presentation. The history, a little bit of the Mclaren and exhibitions. I'm going to skip a little bit of that because we only have 30 minutes. Then I'll go more into depth on what is Mclaren Access Art. Part 3, I'll talk about the exhibitions and interpretations from an accessible lens. So introduce you to the artists and the work, and then how we're hoping to make the gallery space more, reduce the barriers in that space. And then part 4, hopefully, if you have any questions or any feedback, I'd love to hear it at that point. So, you may know the Mclaren Art Center, this lovely building here. We're the regional public art gallery in Simcoe County, serving various Simcoe County in the region. The gallery has a permanent collection of Canadian art that's held in trust for the public, so really is your collection, and we invite you to come in and see it whenever you're able to, COVID depending, of course. The Mclaren is housed in an award-winning building that combines the Carnegie Library, which you can see here, the brick building, with a contemporary addition that was completed in 2001. So this year is our 20th anniversary. We hope we can get back into the building soon, but it includes multiple galleries, an education center, a sculpture courtyard, cafe, gift shop, framing department. Admission is always free, and we try to make the building as accessible as possible. And so in addition to things like a wheelchair lift, oversized elevators, ramps, accessible lighting, things like that, we also take great strides to build on our intellectual and emotional accessibility. So in 2019, we hired the Gilbert Center to deliver 2 rounds of Safer Spaces training, which if you're unfamiliar, it's a really great resource that helps organizations be a more inclusive space for the LGBTQ community, and provides you not only with resources on how to make the space feel more inviting and welcoming, but they also will look at your policies and procedures if you want them to business plans, things like that. So I would highly recommend getting in touch with them. They're on Bradford Street in Barrie. The exhibitions, we put on about 16 a year. That obviously has changed a little bit due to COVID. But we also host community shows and feature local artists as well. So in the next few slides, usually I would go more into detail showing you some of the exhibitions that we have presented over the years, but in the interest of time, I would direct you to the Mclaren Art Center's wonderful website, which we poured a lot of energy into, especially during COVID, to take a look at the exhibitions that we have put on. So just quickly, this one is Tammy Campbell, who was one of our upper level galleries in 2019. Some of her work here. And then another show that we had, permanent collection portrait work that started right at the beginning of COVID, also on our upper level. The Mclaren also offers art classes and workshops for people of all ages. And pictured here is the Barrie Native Friendship Center who we worked with. And I bring this up because part of Mclaren Access Art, it's not just in the gallery, but it's also part art education and learning about the exhibitions on view through making. So a lot of times after you viewed the show, you would go downstairs and do an art activity. It sort of helps you interpret the work in your own way. And just some examples of artwork that we've made with groups in the past. So what is Mclaren Access Art? I did say that it was a pilot project funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, which has allowed us to address the needs of accessible exhibition-related programs and interpretive tools in our galleries. The outreach to the community, we're in the process of developing new ways that visitors can experience and reflect on the artwork on view and in our permanent collection. So it's a seed grant, and the funding is quite small, and we have a tight scope of work that we want to accomplish. And like I said, currently our goals are to focus on the exhibitions, not so much like adding an additional ramp into the gallery. It's more in the exhibition spaces. And of course, this is a grant, but we want to bring these things into the future. So after we're finished with this pilot program, we're hoping to extend all of what we've learned and taken from our partnerships with our regional organizations and bring that into the future. So how can we continue this work? We don't want it to stop. So the Mclaren Access Art team is a small but mighty team. I'm the accessibility coordinator, and essentially it's my job to do lots of outreach to the community partners to see what would work best for everyone. In part, this means reaching out with surveys, feedbacks, Zoom calls to keep people abreast of the programs as they develop, and guiding, when participants do come into the gallery, guiding them through the tours in person. I'm also working on researching what other galleries are doing to successfully implement accessibility at their galleries and see what are the standards that are arising and how can we implement those as well. Lisa Nakin, who you can see on the right-hand side of the screen there, is a registered art therapist. Her resume is extremely long and impressive, so I won't give you the full thing, but she's a compassionate, intuitive clinician who specializes in psychotherapy and art therapy for children and adults. She's worked at the gallery for several years with our Tuesday morning art explorers and the Camp Hill community group. She's also this year taken on our Wedge program, which is a free drop-in program for high school aged youth. And she facilitates a safe space where they can come and make art projects completely for free. And both of those programs really have a wellness component to them, and that's sort of the top note. If you're thinking about the programs, all of the art making is filtered through this wellness and mindfulness regimen that she has structured. One other person who is on the team, who's not pictured here, is JJ Hunt, based out of Toronto. So JJ is an experienced describer of cultural events and artwork of all shapes and sizes. He has done audio describing work and written descriptions and live descriptions for the Andy Warhol Museum, for CBC, the National Film Board of Canada, the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, among many other noteworthy contracts. So what he is doing is, in working with the curator of the exhibition and the artist and the texts that have been created, he is creating audio descriptions and emotionally sensitive written text that can help reduce barriers to intellectual access in the room. And those will be implemented in various different ways when people come and view the exhibitions. I also like to note that he hosts a really cool podcast called Talk Description to Me with co-host Christine Malik. And it's an interesting podcast where they just discuss current events and news in really content-rich descriptions, verbal descriptions about current events. And we're really thrilled that he has been working with us to fully describe our exhibitions. So now I want to tell you a little bit about Erica DeFreitas and her exhibition, which is called Everything She Inspires Remains, Belongs to Light, and all the accessibility tools and programs that we're developing in relation to this exhibition. I should note two things. The first thing is that Erica's exhibition started in December and it actually closed in March. And that was one of the pitfalls of COVID, is that we had hoped to have everyone come in and really participate in the exhibition and all the tools and programs that we had developed before her exhibition closed. Unfortunately, we've been in lockdown for so long that it was really hard to get people into the building. So we're thinking of new, different ways to implement these programs now that the exhibition is actually closed. The second thing, and this is why your feedback is so important, is we're hoping to modify and implement these tools for our future seasons of exhibition. So hopefully you can see some things in this presentation that would be interesting to carry forward into future exhibitions. So this is Erica. She's a Scarborough-based artist, and her art practice is very broad, and she uses different materials. Generally, and for this exhibition, she makes performances, photographs, video art, installations, artworks on paper. She has also made installations, and she's a writer and an educator. She has many awards under her belt, excuse me. The topmost of which would be a long listed for the 2017 SOBI Award, which is Canada's preeminent visual arts award. Her work and the exhibition focuses on a few different themes. So this is one of the works that was in the show. One of the themes is the body and gestures. And as we all know, gestures and movements of the body, especially hands, are used to signal something or convey a message. And Erica's work makes use of this, makes ample use of gestures, whether through photographs or her own hands or with objects that she collages. So here we have a bird's eye view of a tabletop. And on the table, there's several objects that the artist has collected, including a round mirror, in the top left-hand corner of the photo. You can see the mirror is reflecting a portion of the room that Erica was in when she took this photograph. Below the mirror is a booklet that's held open by a rock that reveals a roadmap of Paris. And in the upper right-hand corner of the photo is a skinny brass measuring tool, which kind of looks like a yardstick that has been cut into equal sections and refastened together. And it lays across the top of the photo, sort of zigzagging across. Also in this photo, you can see Erica's hands. Those are the hands of the artist. One hand lays palm side up on the white paper, while the other uses a black Sharpie marker to trace her lifeline across the graph paper. The marker line travels off of her palm and continues towards the center of the photo as if tracing backwards in time, really. And finally, in the bottom of the photo, across the margins, Erica has written the words "again, again." And she often does this in a lot of her work, a form of note-taking to herself and also communicating to the audience what she was thinking at the time of making the photograph. So here you can see a group of her collages. There's over 100 collages in the exhibition, and they really they present other themes that are present in the exhibition, including themes of identity. So she's talking about her identity and the identity of other Black female artists that have been maybe erased throughout history, in art history, the importance of documentation, and how people are recorded throughout history. So all of that to say, I know that was a lot about Erica's work. In making this art, she's invoking ideas and pointing to questions like, how can a gesture be seen as a memorialization? Or how can the act, how can an act, a small act, preserve the memory of someone? So now here is a preview of the layout of the exhibition when it was up. And so for Erica's exhibition, it's sort of the accessibility tools and programs are broken up into two categories. There's the physical accessibility and then the intellectual, emotional accessibility. So first I'm going to go through just some of the physical things that we did to the gallery space. For this exhibition, we began by modifying the way we installed the artwork. And we felt that these simple changes would make guests a little bit more aware of the space that they were inhabiting, but also the ways they see the work. So just a lower wall hanging height for the artwork to making it easier for people to get close to and see. We also had visual guides like textured floor vinyl that subtly lets guests know how close they are to walls and artwork. And we thought this was a better option rather than stanchions or ropes that galleries usually see, which can be a tripping hazard. We also included wider pathways between exhibition artworks, rest areas, and gallery implements. And then also dimmable lighting and sounds in the gallery upon request. Right now, the gallery, or when this exhibition was up, I should say, there was no sound in any of the video work, but that is an option that we're going to present in the future, just adjusting the audiovisual conditions to suit someone's needs. So the next thing we've also made sure to include is larger font and high contrast wall text, labels, family didactics, and essays. We've also made sure to include access symbols within the gallery indicating what artwork is touchable, which artwork has audio descriptions, and which artwork there's more information on. It should be mentioned before I go any further that we have ASL interpreters from Deaf Access who would be on site when we do the tours, because we know that people prefer different ways of experiencing the exhibitions. And we are hoping to reach out to other, any people that come in for the tours, we're going to reach out to them in advance to figure out what exactly their needs are. So when it comes to navigating this gallery space, we've also added extra seating within the gallery so guests can sit and rest or simply take longer periods of time to view the artwork. We've also prepared designated quiet spaces outside of the gallery setting that can be used for rest, which are on the main floor. Also some more simple things like clear directional signage throughout the gallery, so you get a sense of what way might be beneficial to flow through the space. And then we often find that sometimes the language used to describe the artwork in the Mclaren, but really in any gallery, can be quite academic. So we've included plain language, text, and hard copies of that writing that appears in the gallery for people to take away or just take a longer time to sit with. We've also included questions that would help engage conversation about the artwork. So, you know, what do you notice about the artwork that's on the wall? What would you ask the artist if they were here in the room with you? These sorts of things to sort of generate conversation and to stimulate thinking about different ways of entering the artwork, so to speak. So now there are a few interactive things that I'd like to present that would take place in the gallery. And the first thing that we've designed are these tactile close-up replicas of select artwork. So 2D close-ups of photos and artwork that can be held for better viewing. We've implemented this because some of Erica's artwork is quite detailed and contains little messages or partially hidden figures. And so it could be really important for someone to not only pick it up and examine it closely, but also feel. In the case of these collages and the little drawing that you can see there, people would be actually able to feel over the surface of the collage, the outline of the shape that was there without damaging the actual artwork. There are also other little details in the photograph work on the back wall there that it would be hard to see for some. I know it's kind of hard for me to see sometimes, and yet that information is important to the context of Erica's work. So for instance, in one of the photos, there is, it's a photograph of a painting, a historical painting. And in that painting, a woman, a Black female artist, Jen Duval, was painted out by the artist, but over time, as that layer of paint disintegrates, Jen Duval's face is slowly coming back to the surface of the painting. So that image is a little bit hard to see. So providing a blown up picture that you could hold in your hand and really get close to and see, we thought could be very beneficial in understanding Erica's work. We also have another tactile replica that we've made from these photos, but this one will be in 3 dimensions. So working with Erica, we were planning on casting her hands in the same position that they appear in the photo and presenting that on a tabletop diorama for visitors to explore with their hands so they can get a real sense of what is on the wall in front of them if they have low vision or no vision. This will be paired with the audio instructions that JJ Hunt created so that people can not only know how to navigate the diorama, but get so they can identify what they're feeling more accurately and understand the artwork. So if you could imagine from that first photograph that I showed you of Erica who was tracing over her hands, we would take Erica's hands, the actual artist's hands, and cast them in resin, which is fully sanitizable, place those on a tabletop, and then also have different feeling tactile pieces of paper that you could move your hands over the top of and really get a sense of what is in the photograph. What am I looking at? Next, we're providing virtual gallery tours on a free downloadable app, which may seem like a common thing that most galleries have, but these will sort of be, in addition to providing information that is also available in the gallery in other ways. We're using an app called Story, which is a gallery guide app, but it has a lot of really interesting and unique accessibility functions. So if you download the app on your phone, it will integrate with the accessibility functions that are already present on your phone to work within the app. If you're using it on a gallery device that we would provide to you for your stay at the gallery, it would integrate with the accessibility features that are already on that iPad per se. So let's say you prefer to enlarge all the text on your phone. This app would integrate with the software that already does that for you. It's really quite a neat thing, and one other thing that attracted us to this was the gallery beacons that you can see a little drawing of there in the right-hand corner. So this app provides a more autonomous experience of the gallery. Maybe you as a viewer are not interested in taking a tour where you have to listen to me talk in a way that might be not appealing to you. By walking through the space with this app and getting close to a beacon, information will automatically alert you that it's available, so you can look at it or hear it or interact with it in some way on your phone. And as you walk through the space, you can engage with all the artwork in a more autonomous way. And we thought that was really important. And the final thing about the apps that we thought was really important was just this idea that we're providing multiple ways to access the art. So there would be video components that speak to you. Then there would also be ASL interpretation on there if you prefer to interact with the work through ASL interpretation. There's also text, there's also images. So it's just finding the route that is best for you to access the artwork. What else do we have here? So outside of the gallery space, there's also the other implements. So navigational signage, water stations for service dogs, all those things sort of continue outside of the exhibition space. But on the main floor, that's where the art activities will happen. So we're hoping that anyone that came in for a tour would also be able to take part in an art activity. And in this way, they can make artwork and understand the artwork upstairs in their own way. As I mentioned earlier, Lisa Nacken is working with us to design and lead the art making activities that are related to the exhibition. And so one of the programs that has just been developed is a collage-based program that uses the sense of touch rather than the sense of sight to really compose and create a work of art or a collage while you're thinking about the themes of gesture, the themes of documentation that are present in Erica's exhibition. So that's sort of everything that I have for you. And I would invite you to give me any comments or feedback that you have at this point.
I'm so excited you're doing this. This is awesome.
It's been really great, and I have to say, like hearing the feedback from the 10 organizations that I worked with has been the most helpful, the most beneficial part. I don't have any, like I'm not someone who identifies as having a disability, so hearing from specific community groups and people that would come into the gallery and say, oh, you know, I like this idea, but it needs to be tweaked to fit my needs. Those are the little golden nuggets that I've been like picking up this whole process. So I'm happy you're excited for it. Carolyn? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You're on mute.
Thank you, Catherine. Tyler, it's brilliant. I am a retired speech language pathologist. And so you've covered every angle in terms of a multifactorial approach to art. And I just think it's excellent, from the app program to the tactile. It is really most impressive. Kudos to you and your team.
Thank you so much.
It is definitely a process. You know, you're just going to keep learning as you go along, and we all will. when you were describing the tactile version and the audio that went with it, I actually closed my eyes and imagined what it would be like, and it was quite lovely. Like I think, you know, that in itself is just so, it's exciting, and it's something that, you know, finally, you know, groups that haven't been able to experience art can experience. Something that I recognized when you were talking is that there is a quiet space, and that there are quiet spaces built in. As someone who gets overstimulated pretty easily, it's helpful for me. It's, you know, I think it will be helpful for a lot of people who have that sort of overstimulation, brain rest need. So that's not usually considered. So thank you. Other comments?
Well, I'm just overwhelmed. I think it's wonderful. Having been in art galleries in various parts of the world, I'm amazed how forward thinking it is. And the one that I can remember taking a group of people, it was in Collingwood, and we went to the library. They had and it was from Breaking Down Barriers with people, all different kinds of disabilities. And so it noise, because they're used to, well, I saw a few people there I recognized from Endeavor, and I could just imagine that they're loud in that picture, right? So how do you tend to work with that? Or maybe somebody has a boom box because they have no one does the speaking for them, but they want to express themselves about the art.
So
and it's such a quiet place.
Well, that's something that we've been trying to think about. In one way, COVID has been, like, it's kind of solved that problem for us. So if we were to bring in groups, the groups would be quite small, maybe, you know, 3 or 4 people, and then any workers that they have to come with them, or family members that they have to come with them. So just the sheer number of people will be smaller, so the noise might be lower. Like I said, we do offer to adjust the audiovisual stimuli in the gallery spaces on your request, but then there were other things that we were thinking about too. So when we reached out to Camp Hill, and we reached out to Simcoe Community Services, one of the things they said was, we love doing your art programs, but the floor in your education center is concrete, and the screeching of the chairs as we like tuck ourselves into an art table is too much. So how can we deal with that? So really, I would say, again, it's, you know, addressing these things that come up as they come up,
Very
and thinking about
room.
solutions.
It's a room that there's a lot of noise in that room. Like I've gone to some of the lunch and learns and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So well, good.
Yeah.
Well, great. Yeah.
And I guess another thing that I've been thinking about is, at the beginning of this, like I said, it's sort of my first foray into thinking about, like, really digging into accessibility in the gallery, but understanding that what is accessible for one person will not be accessible for someone else. So it's a constant, like, there is no real universal thing that I can put on this program to make it perfect for everyone. It's talking to people and figuring out, okay, what can I change when you come into the gallery? What can I switch back? So an example of that, I was really thinking, oh, these autonomous tours, like these self-guided tours, would be so great for everyone. Then you don't have to listen to me be stuffy and dry and talk about the artwork. You can do it yourself. But the buzz of the phone, like when you approach an artwork, your phone lets you know that there's something to be interacted with. That can be off-putting for some people who don't like sound, who don't like that sudden vibration. So it's like, okay, I would really enjoy that. But how do I modify that for someone else? So again, it's thinking with the different routes to access that. It's been challenging and kind of fun, actually. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tyler, I love what you're doing. I love the work that you're doing there. My only question is there any way of bringing in more disabled artists into this and collaborating with them. This is not a criticism of what you have done. It's just, it feels just so ripe for really working with some of our disabled artists whose voices and perspectives often get lost, I think, in the mix. And I just feel like it would be such an, it already feels like you're leading the charge with this, and it's fantastic. But that's the only thing I can think of to add to this in any way. So take that as a good sign.
So that's a really good question, Heather. And after I started this process, like the benefit of talking to CNIB, talking to Deaf Access, I was put in touch with an artist who's from Aurelia, who as they've gotten older, their eyesight has gotten less and less. And so it's become more of a theme within their work, not just a way of making, but a conceptual theme. And so I had some Zoom conversations with them. And then once the project was put into place, I was hoping to bring her in and really give her the tour by herself and see what she thought of it, and then bring her into maybe the feedback development process afterwards. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's just sort of slowed down a little bit right now. But as I mentioned, I'm moving more into a curatorial role, but it's a multifaceted thing. So I want it to be more of an accessible curatorial role. So bringing in artists like this artist with low sight into the mix and thinking about, okay, not only how can we make it accessible for someone who has low vision or no vision, but is there representation of this community in the room too? Those are things I'm thinking about. I just haven't, I wish I had the time over the last month or so to really implement it. But it's on my list for sure. If you know of any, I've always asked, if you know of any artists, please let me know and put me in contact with them, because I'd love to talk to them.
Great. Any other comments, questions? That was fabulous. This is so exciting.
It really is exciting. It's super cool.
Yeah, this has been such a positive meeting.
Yay.
Ray Francis.
Tyler, should you go to community groups and do this? Because I can think of like a Probus Club or something like that. They would just be amazed. Like if it's good promotion for the Mclaren too.
It is, and I hesitate to go too far with it right now, because we've gotten to a point where we've had to not let people in the building, and we're at that the point in the project where the next step is to get people to test things out. So I have gone to, like I said, I have the 10 organizations that are based within our community, and those will be the first that I bring in if they're willing. But I am looking for other participants. So if you would like to share any contacts you have with me, I'd like to.
Yeah, I was wondering about independent living services too, because they work with people with physical disabilities and seniors. And I always remember a friend that got a Horizons grant who did artwork at Grove Park Home, and she was just amazed at some of the real talent that was there. Maybe they couldn't communicate a lot, but they sure could through the art, So other avenues.
I think.
Excuse me, Tyler. Is there any restriction to the age group of visitors that you will take into the Mclaren Center?
Not on the upper level, but I suppose that the lowest age group that we would bring in would be like the youth age, like maybe 14 or 15 and higher. And that is just the art programs that we've developed has largely been within that group, and those would be sort of easier to manipulate and modify for a younger age group. But the intellectual content of the show might be a little bit more challenging. I would say that, I would welcome anyone of any age group to come in, but right now, just for these programs, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, it's probably more suitable for youth and above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I I did notice that Marie had her hand up.
Yes, yes. Marie Francis?
Yeah, are you aware of Tangled Art Gallery?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
That would be a source for even if you just connect with them, they would probably be able to connect you with artists with disabilities.
Yes, they have so many resources on their website in terms of, like, they have a whole handbook of producing accessible exhibitions and presentations and things like that. So Tangled has been, for many years, has been a leader in this way of making exhibitions and artwork.
Yes.
Other artists that I've been looking at are Shannon Finnegan and Asl Thomas. So Asl Thomas recently did a project with the Kitchener-Waterloo Art Gallery where they looked at work from their collection and responded to it in a way that included accessible implements, but also like as a conceptual theme, but also physically. And so they made descriptive text for this artwork that they were describing, and then they made a physical object as well. Shannon Finnegan does these amazing sculptural pieces, which are artworks in themselves, but address accessibility as a topic. So she makes these blue benches that say this, for instance, this exhibition has asked me to stand for too long, sit if you agree, and she'll place them throughout the gallery and things that are similar in that way. So they're kind of fun, but also make you aware of what the space is demanding of you.
I'm gonna connect you with Amanda Dyke, Tyler. You probably already know each other because she's a person about town and you're a person about town as well. But this committee has sponsored an Accessible Artists Award for 2 years. In 2017, they awarded their first award through the cultural, the Arts Award, the Culture Grants Award, Barry Arts Award. And then in 2018, or maybe 3 years, maybe it was 2018 and 2019. 2020 it was canceled because of COVID. Mm-hmm. But they're local, like the parameters of that award is that you have to be a local Barrie artist with a disability. And so I can't remember the name of the two winners we've had so far, but in addition
Joey Red was one.
That's right, yes. But in addition to the winners, there are other applicants, right? So those would be local artists who have a disability and are producing art. So it might be interesting for you. I don't, it's not a large group. We didn't have like hundreds of applicants or anything like that, but we've just started. So maybe together with once COVID's done and the Arts Awards are back up and running, and with your project to bring more accessibility to the curatorial spaces and just the art gallery experience, maybe more individuals with disabilities who create art will feel more confident to make themselves known to us. So
that's a great idea. Thank you.
No problem.
I do know Amanda. I should reach out to her and just see if I can get a hold of that list of applicants.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to go somewhere, so I don't want to keep you if you need to run.
I'm a student right now. I have online classes that start shortly, but I want to thank you for just giving me a platform to talk about what the Mclaren is doing. And like I said before, I've been reaching out to other organizations, including other galleries. So there are other galleries out there doing this, like the AGO is doing it in different ways. They have like seniors groups that approach artwork in different ways. They have sensory sessions where you can touch artwork with nitrile gloves on, things like that. The Kitchener-Waterloo Art Gallery, as I mentioned. So I'm happy, all that to say, I'm happy that the Mclaren is part of a wave that is slowly building. So yeah, I hope we can just keep it going.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. I'll see you all later.
Off to school, Tyler.
Yes.
Take care. Thank you so much.
I know.
Okay. Now we are looking at our discussion items number 2.
I know, and I should say, hate to follow that.
I know. I'm so
I know.
excited. I just want to end
That
it
was-
right now while it's good.
No, okay. Well, we won't be long. So we have a proclamation, and I will read it for you for National Accessibility Week, and I compiled a timeline of information for our communications folks. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I sent them 13 pages of stuff, and Tammy, that was just the written stuff. And then Tammy sent me some pictures that she'd found from over the years, and then the membership list. So I actually had to create a zip folder. I had so much stuff to send them. I had to create a zip folder in order to email it to them properly. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I heard yesterday from our communications representative that that they were going to do a press release, and they're going to pick out pieces from the last 20 years that was shared with them. And so it's going to be anyone's surprise what it's gonna be like. But I'd like to take, after I read the proclamation to you, I'd like to take some time to just go over some of the highlights because there's a lot. Like, this committee does a lot, and I think you guys, maybe just living life, don't realize how much of an impact you have. And I'm just thinking, like, it's 2021 and it's May, and you've already had a couple consultations. You've already provided feedback and comments to staff, and that has ripple effects, because then the staff go back and they do work. And as an example, one of the engineers, after the motion that you guys made about the walkways occurred last meeting, he went back onto the YouTube channel and watched this meeting, and on his day off, no less. So, and he just really wanted to understand it. And he contacted me afterwards, and he had some awesome ideas about, what we can do to make different improvements. And he's thinking bigger than what, the motion, I think, like initially the motion from staff who were present, we're thinking operationally, like, how do we maintain the road or the walkway, keep it free from weeds and in the summer, and how do we keep it accessible in the winter with snow plowing? But he's thinking bigger, and I think his thoughts align more closely with comments that Marie Francis had and Heather had about, even if you have like summer walking path, you could fall on your face because the bumps are, so high and whatnot. So that was to me, that was really cool, because that's a discussion that you had, that you guys, it's going to carry over and further work. So anyway, on to business. I'll read the proclamation. So we've requested that the mayor and council proclaim May 30th to June 5th, 2021 as National Accessibility Week. So whereas an estimated 15% of Ontario's approximately 11 million residents have some form of disability, and as disability increases with age, there is a need for greater awareness of the needs, capabilities, and potential of persons with disabilities in Ontario. And whereas individuals with disabilities are impacted daily by barriers to information, facilities, employment, transportation, and communication supports, therefore negatively challenging an individual's ability to fully participate in community life. And whereas the City of Barrie, Council, and the citizens of Barrie are committed to working to make Barrie an inclusive community in which all persons can independently exercise their civil, political, social, and cultural rights on an equal basis, ensuring that everyone has the right to live in conditions of dignity, respect, and peace. And whereas on behalf of the City of Barrie, we extend our recognition to all persons with disabilities and offer our support to National Accessibility Week as an opportunity to celebrate accessibility as a national concern while working locally to increase our efforts to achieve our goal of becoming an inclusive community by working to eliminate barriers to City of Barrie facilities, programs, and services. Therefore, I, Jeff Lehman, Mayor of the City of Barrie, do hereby proclaim May 30th to June 5th, 2021 as National Accessibility Week and encourage everyone to support equality of access and opportunity for persons with disabilities. So that is that.
That's very good, Heather, or Cheryl.
Thank you.
Yeah, very inclusive.
The mayor will read it, or maybe Councillor Thompson will read it. I'm not certain, but they'll read it at the committee, the general committee, or city council meeting during that week.
Yeah.
So they'll proclaim that, which is wonderful. And then it was really kind of cool for me putting together this list, like it's like 13 pages of information. So in 2001, the Ontarians with Disabilities Act received royal assent, and as a result, all municipalities with populations greater than 10,000 had to create accessibility advisory committees. And at the time, we had a clerk named John Sisson who was really keen, and he created the first committee. He had members of the community that were always active and engaging with him on different things related to city business, asking him to make improvements or helping get them connected to different staff members in other departments to make improvements for accessibility. So he picked those individuals and they formed the first committee. And then in 2002, the committees, the Accessibility Advisory Committee started doing accessibility facility audits of all City of Barrie facilities. In 2003, this is kind of cool, the Accessibility Advisory Committee consulted with our building staff, and they what they did was they created requirements in the property standards. So what they did effectively was they helped to change the bylaws so that our property standards inspectors, when they go out and do inspections, ensure accessible access is maintained in public facilities. So, and this is something that actually still exists today. So if, for example, you live in an apartment building and the landlord or the apartment building owner decides that they want to do some renovations and they take out the front stoop and they don't put a handrail, like say they, or maybe they just take the handrail out because they're doing changes. Well, if you have if you're a person who has a disability or any kind of balance disorder, or you're an older adult, that can be seriously dangerous from a health and safety perspective, but also from an accessibility perspective, it can prevent you from getting in and out of the building. And then and that's just like for an entry with stairs. With ramps, we see changes happening with people who have buildings that have ramps. And so it used to be, I think it probably still happens, but hopefully not as much, but it used to be that there wasn't anything in our laws or our bylaws that protected people. If their landlord decided to make that kind of a change, they could just do it. And then you just had to suck it up and wait for them to put the handrail back. So this committee back in 2002 worked with our staff to make it so that property standards inspections, like they require that. So if that happened to you at that time, you could call the city and a property inspector would go out, and under our property standards bylaw, they would fine the landlord or building owner or whatever, because they weren't complying with the property standards. And it's crazy because 2002 wasn't maybe that long ago, but we didn't have that protection back then, and this committee helped to create that. So that's just a small example. Or 2003 is when that happened. So in 2004, the Accessibility Advisory Committee started working with the Royal Victoria Hospital, talking about different renovations and expansion. And the expansion project was much, much later, but it all started in the early 2000s. Members of this committee started working with members of the RVH Accessibility Advisory Committee. In 2005, the AODA was passed. And at the same time, 2005, the Accessibility Advisory Committee provided comments and feedback about accessibility for the Holly Recreation Center, it was constructed, the completion of that facility was 2007, but staff came to the committee and got that feedback about accessibility in 2005. In 2006, the committee hosted a luncheon with a number of different organizations in Barrie, supporting accessibility and disability. And also in 2006, this is another bylaw change. So in 2006, the committee worked with our enforcement area to get 0 rates passed for parking meters in Barrie if you had an accessible parking placard. So a lot of municipalities are similar to Barrie, and they don't charge parking fees for people who have an accessible placard, but a lot of municipalities do. It's not a provincial thing. It's a municipal thing. And it's actually private parking thing, because as you know, RVH does charge people who have an accessible placard for parking. So it's up to the discretion of the parking authority. And so in 2006, this committee lobbied council and worked with our enforcement staff to make it so that if you had an accessible parking placard, you can park for free in any City of Barrie parking lot and or metered parking. So that's pretty cool. In 2007 and 2008, 2 years in a row, the committee partnered with Simcoe County and Innisfil to host large accessibility awareness days. Actually, and they had like different presentations by the then Canadian Paraplegic Association, now Spinal Cord Injury, as well as Barrie Fire and Emergency Services, ILS, a number of other different organizations, as well as presentations from Paralympics Ontario. In 2008, the presentation, the National Access Awareness Week Day that they partnered with Innisfil and Simcoe County for, actually they had the Honorable Lieutenant Governor David Onley attend, and they ended up having a barbecue lunch, and they had I think over 600 people at that event, which was pretty amazing. And he came again for a different function, similar theme, in 2009. I think he is originally from this area, and so at the time he was very active in our accessibility events, which was really excellent.
Mary Frances has a comment, Cheryl.
Oh, sure. I can't see you, Mary Frances. Jump in.
Okay, I'm super sorry, guys. My kids are calling, so I'm gonna have to take off at this point.
Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, go mom. Yeah.
Yep.
So sorry, ladies. That's
it. Like, I'm just sharing what you know. I just I feel pretty bad because I don't have a timeline for you guys to see, like, and the communications doesn't have it done. So I just wanted to share some of those highlights. So that's, yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
That's all
I
I'm
love
doing.
it. It's awesome. And it's cool to learn about all of the history of stuff. But my kids do not
Yeah,
value
they do.
that.
They need you. Absolutely. They do. They totally need you.
So
Yeah.
I'll have to run.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
Don't be bummed.
so much.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Be safe.
I will. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So another thing that this committee has done in the past is assist staff in applying for enabling accessibility funding opportunities. So at different times, the government has opened up money. Some of the applications that we've put forward have gone forward successfully. Like in 2008, money was applied for audible pedestrian signals. A different year, money was applied for renovations to Allendale. We didn't get that. And then most recently, we applied for funding for renovations to Sheer Park for accessibility, and we did get that. So this committee has been very helpful with that. Another thing that this committee did a lot of in the early days was provide feedback and advice and consultation to other community accessibility advisory committees. So there's a lot of, within the Simcoe County, there's a lot of smaller communities that maybe don't have, at the time, they didn't fit the 10,000 population. And so their communities didn't have to have an accessibility advisory committee, but they had community members who were passionate and advocating for improvements. And so this committee would do different consultations and sharing with other communities in our area. And even now, like, one of the things I always try to do is if I do something for our like say if I update policies or update training manuals or anything like that related to accessibility for our staff, I always share it with some of our smaller communities because in our area, because they don't have the resources that we do. And so if it's a good policy, then I say, you can take it and use what you can use. And, it doesn't do anything for me. Like I just feel like we should help each other kind of thing. In 2009, that's when the expansion project, the RVH expansion project really took off. So members of this committee were really involved in providing feedback. In 2009 also was when we had our very first accessible customer service policy. And we also reconstructed our Barrie Fire and Emergency Services Station 1. And we did that with the assistance and feedback from this Accessibility Advisory Committee. And they've given tours and stuff like that since then, because it is very functional and very accessible. And it's actually quite an interesting facility. In 2010, this committee provided feedback and comments on the construction of Painswick Library for accessibility. So that's something that's you guys can see. In 2011, the committee hosted like a meet and greet for Access Awareness Week, and then a number of members were interviewed on Rogers Channel 10 for Access Awareness Week. The downtown theater, the Mady Center, was completed for accessibility in 2011 as well. The committee, the chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee in 2011 spoke with the Barrie Chamber of Commerce to bring awareness to Barrie business community regarding accessible customer service. So the public sector has to meet our accessibility requirements and compliance requirements earlier than the private sector. So we had to have all of our policies for accessible customer service completed and our staff trained for January 1, 2010. Whereas the private sector didn't have to have theirs done until 2012. And so this committee really did a lot of work to try to raise awareness on the importance of that. And then another thing that happened that's really cool in 2011, it was the 25th anniversary of the Rick Hansen's Man in Motion tour. And Rick Hansen's team came to the city of Barrie. We were one of their stops, and there was events and activities in the rotunda, including performances by different school choirs and some speakers and different members of Rick's team. And also for those of you who may know, there were awards given out for difference makers, and our Barrie difference maker was Heather Hollingshead, who was a chapter. She was the executive director of the spinal cord injury, our local chapter of spinal cord injury. And then 2012, we were able to make by the end of December 2012, all of our buses were fully accessible, fully low floor buses, which was a pretty big feat. And there's a bunch of other things, but one of the things that was really cool is in 2012 we hosted a gentleman. His name is Howard Jerry. So we hosted him for National Accessibility Week at the South Shore Center. And he's a universal design and architecture expert from OCAD University. And so we had him come to help us celebrate National Accessibility Week and to do a presentation on universal design and universal access. And we invited all city staff, as well as like staff from other municipalities, and also a ton of members of the development community to come and learn as much as they could about universal design.
So Cheryl,
yes,
all of these things that you're talking about are amazing, and unfortunately my brain is not having one of its
okay.
best
No,
days.
it's okay. If it's too much, I can stop right now.
What I'm curious about is what I think the plan is that the communications department is going to be pulling this together.
They're going to do like, so they're going to do like they're going to do a press release, and they're going to do a timeline. I've asked them to do a timeline and have that put on our website. But the thing is, there's so much. I don't know that they're going to put everything on there. Like, I just don't think they're going to. No. So I can stop here and maybe what I'll do is I'll clean up the document so it's not so messy and send it to you guys, and you guys can read it and check it out on your own time.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Me too.
Very exciting.
Okay, so I'll do that.
See what we've been involved in.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do that. And so then that's it. I'll stop. Because it's just a bunch, it's just a bunch of stuff coming at you. Like, and it's a lot. Even when I was doing like pulling together everything that you guys have done in 2019 and 2020, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, probably they've forgotten half of this stuff. And it's big stuff. Like, you guys have been involved in some big stuff. And I think at the time, maybe it doesn't feel so big. And that's why I'm just so excited to share it, because it is big stuff.
Excited.
Yeah. Louise, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
There I am. I discovered something that when I went to sign up for a rec program, and it's some kind of, and one of my friends said, oh, the city of Barrie has that? That's expensive. We really wanted it for the Children's Treatment Network, but I forget the name of it. But it's a very interactive, accessible registration system, and the city of Barrie has it.
Well, that makes me really happy to hear. I can't tell you what it is.
We'll have to list it sometime.
Yay, city of Barrie.
I know. You'll have to list it sometime.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome.
And I would just like to point out, since we're looking at milestones and things that have happened and people who have been really important to this committee, I'd like to commend Louise. Louise has been
around since 2002.
That's right.
2002. Oh, I remember those days of doing the audit. I remember Albert Stein did the one of the fire hall. Like, he was just an amazing, he did so much education for the planning department. It was really Albert. Yeah.
Well, it's good to have you back, Louise. So thank you for all of your work, because you've been involved for so long. Yeah, much appreciated, everybody. I think that's it, unless we have any referred items.
That's it.
So fantastic meeting, everybody. Thanks for everybody's input. I think it was this is one of the best meetings ever. We just got, good news on so many fronts. So.
Tyler's presentation, that's awesome. I'm so excited. Like,
and just to be able to work with Madeline too, I think.
Madeline, well, this is the thing. So you're not going to be working necessarily directly with Madeline.
Right.
So what you would be doing, you would be taking some of that off her plate.
Right.
Which is still super cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, that's still super cool. But she's, one person. So I don't want to stretch. I don't want to stretch her too thin. So.
Any other comments? No? Well, then I think we shall adjourn.
Sorry, Catherine. There was one thing. I'm sorry. As I said, my brain is going very slowly today.
It's okay.
The comment that Madeline made reminded me of the fact that there is a second part of the process with the city plan. Yes, thank you. I told you it's a bad day.
Okay.
And wondered whether we needed to put that on the agenda for next month to look at again, because I'm not sure what the time frame is for that. I didn't want us to miss it.
Yeah, if you want, we can. I'll reach out to Jordan to see if he wants us to, like, if he wants to come back, like, if there's anything new, like, so essentially, like, the second part of the official plan, as I understand it, so what they do is all that work you guys did in the fall, providing feedback. So, like, you're one group, but there are multiple groups. So what they do is they have an end date for gathering that feedback. And then what they do is they go back and they incorporate all that feedback, or they go back for more questions if they don't understand it, or if it's just wacky feedback and they're like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to paint our trees blue, whatever. Like, who knows? But then what they do is they put their draft back out to the public and they say, is this what you meant?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good opportunity for you to review to make sure that Jordan heard what you said. So I'll send an email tomorrow, and in it, I'll send the link for the planning, the map for the development, so you guys can check that stuff out. But I'll also send you the updated document so you can look that over and see that. And then we'll see if he needs to come back in June, pardon me. Otherwise it would be September. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Okay.
You're also going to talk about single-use plastics and possibly banning them in June. And you know what? I don't want to get you scared, and I know people get really riled up about that. It's voluntary. I looked into it. It's not as scary as people think it is. So if you need a single-use plastic straw, Bob's your uncle. Take it. What the city's trying to do is encourage large producers to, like, not do that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And at this point, I think we will adjourn. And have a wonderful evening. Have a good month, and we'll see you next month.